Welcome to this Wednesday morning talk. I'm Emma Rowena. I am a musician and a performer. I'm also an intuitive reader and healer. And I work with topics of life. And in this series, that's exactly what I invite you into. My corner of sharing experiences, of sharing thoughts and tools and guidance on how to navigate in this thing called life. So I welcome you. Thank you for joining. Today, this week's topic is grief. And this is based on my own very fresh experience and of still being in a state of grief. As I mentioned or talked about on Monday, which was even fresher, I recently had to let my beloved dog go. And for those of you who do not have pets or relate to pets, maybe you don't understand how this can feel. Anybody who has an animal will do. But maybe you can understand grief from a different perspective. Maybe you're in a different state of grief. There is no right or wrong in grief. Grief is grief. It's an expression of love. It's an expression of having loved and lost, and of still loving. And it's an expression of finding yourself in a state of not understanding where to move next, maybe. Or maybe even if you do know in here, and even if you do know somewhere deep down here, maybe you've lost sight of it somewhere. Or maybe these emotions they take all the space they need because they're your emotions. They're part of your life, of your being human. Now, I happen to have a very, very deep and ingrained belief that there is more to life than what we see. There is more to life than this 3D body, if you like. I happen to believe that a passing of somebody is a transition into a different realm. And I happen to also experience and believe that I can feel and sense the essence and the energies of those past, even when they're not here. Not all the time. Sometimes intensely, sometimes more lightly or easily. And sometimes in my work, this happens, that we connect to people who passed. Yes, we do. This is my belief. You don't have to believe it. But what I want to share today and talk about today is a little bit about how you can hold your own grief, how you can allow it and accept it, and allow the depth of the feeling to guide you forward, to move you forward, not to let go of whatever it is that you're grieving in the sense that you have to forget it, but to move forward to a place where you can embrace whatever has been from a state of gratitude, of love, of appreciation. And this will happen if you allow yourself to grieve. Now, there are so many thoughts and ideas and rules about how long you're supposed to grieve, how to grieve, the stages of grieving. And yes, in theory, maybe you can observe that there are these stages. Oh yeah, you're now in the angry stage or denial, whatever. It doesn't really help. What helps, I find, is to allow. And what helps is that hug from that person who met me this morning, walking her own dog, wondering where my dog had gone. And she gave me a hug when I told her. And why do I grieve so much over a dog that I've only known for 2.5 years? Why do we grieve like this? It's because we love, because we connect. We are compassionate, loving human beings. And I also believe, I have an ingrained, deep belief that we are love. This is our essence. This is what we come from. And in this love is a connection to all that is. to all of creation. We obstruct it, we put a lid on it, we analyze it away, we shut it off at times, we disconnect from our own depth of love, of compassion, of being unlimited beings, if you like. But that's still, in my belief, our essence. That's still who we are, what we come from. And so when we connect to somebody deeply in this realm, in this world, then when that being passes, we find ourselves suddenly at a loss, alone. What happens? What's my reality? And that's how it should be. That's how it is. Your reality has to shift when something shifts in your reality. And your place in the reality will shift. And this is painful. Sometimes you feel desperately alone in this. And sometimes you just want things, you just want this person, this animal, this state of being. Maybe it's a different state maybe it's a shift in your own life, in your health that's causing your grief. You just want it back because that's what you knew. That's what you could navigate in. You want the person you loved back because it felt so good to be close to that person. And even if maybe it's a person or a relationship that wasn't that good, but it was familiar. It's something you could lean into, something you knew. And what you have to do after that person or animal or state of existence has disappeared or changed, you have to somehow discover how to live from a different perspective, from a different state of being, from being you in a different reality. Yes, it's a different reality. Of course it is. And this is painful. And I honor your pain, if that's where you are. I honor your grief because it shows me that you are living. Now, even if you cannot feel the grief, that's okay. Maybe you're not ready for it now. But if you're in this state of sadness that you cannot shake, don't shake it. Lean into it. Allow it. It's a way of honoring yourself, of honoring your capacity to love, to be human, to connect. And if you feel disconnected, that's part of your way. Accept, embrace yourself. That's an act of self-love, which is the greatest love, because if you have this, I've talked about this again and again, when you come home to yourself, when you embrace yourself, when you have this self-compassion, self-love, there's no limit to who you can extend this compassion to. And then you connect. So if you accept your grief, if you accept your disconnection even, you start connecting to yourself. That's all you need to do. And now, the world expects us to grieve quicker, to move on, to let go. I posted a video, I think yesterday, of a woman called Tanya Tepper. It's a TED Talk. And it's actually a very, very powerful and beautiful talk, and I recommend you to look it up. Tanya Tepper. She talks about grief, and she talks about how people were saying you have to move on, you have to let him go, because she lost her fiancé in the 9/11 incident. And no, we don't have to do that. People cannot expect you to grieve at a certain time or in a certain way. And you don't even really have to let go of that person. But eventually, once you start embracing your sadness, allowing it and moving through it in your way, in your time, then you will start to open up to a different memory, a different place of remembering that person, those beautiful memories that you had with that person, even in yourself. I'll come back to that when something changes in your own state, in your own health, for instance, as an example. But You will start to love the memories, and you can bring them forward. Bring the experience, bring your story forward into new love. Add to your new love by having this memory of what you did love and could love in time, when you're ready. And I'm experiencing, actually, because I work a lot with these things and I investigate. And investigation is maybe my biggest tool in these things. And what I do, I investigate what it feels like now to miss my beautiful dog, to grieve him, to remember the attachment, the closeness, the way he smelled. Even he smelled like the forest. So it was the only dog I could really, really hug without getting allergic. I'm usually quite allergic, or sometimes a little bit allergic. The previous dog I was a bit allergic to. This one, I could, and he shed his fur all the time, but I could really embrace him. And remembering this with an emotion, or from a state of gratitude, that is a different place than remembering as from a state of pain and wanting it all to come back. There's nothing wrong with that, but you will move forward. You will move into the place where you can remember those beautiful moments from a place of gratitude, from a place of, that was beautiful. I could actually connect to this person, this animal, this state of being in a most beautiful way. Wow, what an experience. Imagine that. You'll get there, but it might take some time, and you might need some help, and you might need hundreds of hugs and embraces and how are you doing and I'm thinking of you before you can go there. You might need to get down on your knees and weep and cry and howl from grief, and please do. In fact, try it. Do that. Do exactly that. When you're on your own, get down on your knees, or if you're driving, stop the car, stop the engine, and howl and weep for as long as you need to. Don't stop it until it stops by itself, because it will. Because when you allow this howling and this weeping, you move it through the wave of grief. You move into it and you navigate through it in your way. And if it's something else, if it's yelling with anger, if it's whatever it is, whatever comes to you, whatever expression is yours, it's perfect for you. Only you can grieve in your way. It took me 2 years to stop longing and grieving after my breakup with my ex, with the father of my son. But it was also the moment when I really started to grow, when I really started to heal all of me and really started to reconnect to my essence, my beauty, my inner beauty, my love, my compassion for myself, for others, my ability to really connect to this beautiful dog who was in pain because he had been discarded by so many people, because he had been mistreated by humans. And he came to us, and he wasn't always easy, but I could connect because I was in a place where I could connect to myself, because I had grown from a place of deep grief and of pain from that breakup. It's years ago now, but it took me 2 years, and people said, oh, it'll take a year. It took me over 2 years, actually. And I felt guilty for spending 2 years before I could let go of this man, this relationship, this story that I had believed that I was going to continue living, this new reality, that letting go of the old reality and starting to see the new reality. And you know what happens? I just realized, as I'm sort of investigating what's going on now, partly also because I'm doing these talks, what happens is that in the beginning, any new reality is unwanted. You don't want it. You can't even relate to it. You cannot even fathom that you're going to have ever find yourself in a new reality where life will be different, and even maybe good, even full of love maybe, or joy or laughter. You cannot think, and you shouldn't, you don't need to, because this curtain, like a theatre curtain that's between you and your new reality, when you're in this darkness, this wave of grief. Tanya Tepper, in that video that I posted yesterday, and the TED Talk, she talks about how grief, it's like the ocean. It's like you're on the beach and you're very happy and joyful. Everything's honky-dory and beautiful. And then this tidal wave comes and pulls you out into the depth of the ocean, and you don't know how to navigate, and you have to navigate. Well, when you're in that depth, in that grief, that curtain is quite thick. It hides everything in your new reality, but slowly and gently. And as you move through and navigate through this wave of grief, as you start to accept and embrace yourself and take your time in this grief and ask for the help that you need and express it in your way, with your howling, with your crying, with your anger, with your whatever it is, this curtain becomes thinner, and it becomes gradually a veil. And eventually you start to see the contours of the new reality. And eventually this veil becomes so thin that you can even start to touch and to move through it and maybe smell the smells of the new reality, or see the colors, or maybe even see that there's good things in this new reality, while you still honor and hold the memory of the old. And eventually this veil will be pulled away, and you will be able to step into your new reality without losing yourself, because you've honored your grief, you've honored your emotion, you've honored your movement, and you've honored your ability to love, which is what grief is the expression of. That's my opinion. That's my experience. And I was going to address a little bit what happens when you lose the reality that you knew in yourself through, for instance, health, an incident to health, or loss of maybe your job, or there's a grief in that too. And allowing yourself to grieve that too, and to start to embrace the new reality, wherever it is. Someone close in my family suffered a severe stroke this spring. I was very close to that person in the incident. I was there actually, but I've been close to the person through the whole process. And watching first the courage to move forward, and then reality hits. The old reality will never be restored the way it was. There is a new reality waiting. We don't know what that's going to be yet. And so the person starts to find himself in a place of grief over not being able to be who he was. But he is who he was. And starting to connect to who he is, always will be, in the essence, is part of moving forward into a new reality that he can embrace. And we know that people have recovered beautifully, so that there's always hope for that. But still, the frustration of this moving slowly now, it was quick in the beginning, of healing from this stroke. It's quite slow now, but it's still moving. But this person's reality has shifted completely, and our reality in relation to this person has shifted completely. And that's a grief. And we need to allow that grief, to share it, to embrace each other in that grief as well as the one of losing someone you've loved. Because maybe you loved the life you had, or maybe you didn't even love it, but you knew yourself, you knew your reality, and maybe you can learn to embrace yourself and love yourself in your new reality. That's the healing. That's when the healing occurs, and it will happen. But it will happen in the time that you allow it to happen. There's no rule. There's no right. There's no wrong. You are entitled to your emotions and your way of grieving or accepting or not accepting or raging against the changes in your life, the losses in your life, the pain. And then eventually appreciating whatever it was that you had, that you lost, from a different place, and appreciating moving forward with that memory of loving, of holding something and somebody and your own self in both what was and what is and what will be. You have yourself always. That is non-negotiable. And as I said, in my deep ingrained belief, we also have ourselves as we move on, as we transition into a different realm. And I know that my beautiful dog, who is now become the being that inspired this week's talk, and that I'm sort of honoring this week by talking about, this week. This beautiful dog, I know that he's moving forward. I can feel him close by me. That's fine. Maybe you don't believe that either. It doesn't matter. Maybe you do. That's fine. But you will probably be able to feel and sense the essence of whoever it is that you lost, or your own life that you lost. And knowing that you can hold that dear in your heart still, even though you have to move forward in a new reality. And eventually, it will be part of your story, part of your integrity, part of your ability to love, maybe even more greater ability to love, because you acknowledge that you could love. This is your grief. It's an expression of your ability to love, as again I mentioned earlier. And if you need to get down on your knees, that's the one exercise that I really wanted to share today. Get down on the knees, allow yourself to wail and cry as long as you need to, without anybody stopping you or anybody telling you that it's wrong. Even if it's a long time since this happened, it doesn't matter. Your emotion is yours. Your grief is yours. And your allowance to honor this is yours. Only you choose. Only you can decide. And if you're fed up, if you want to move on, there are ways of getting help to do that. That's fine. And you can find ways of doing it, and you'll do it beautifully in your way. And allow somebody to hug you if you need it. Ask for that hug. Ask for help. Call somebody. I'm struggling today. Can you say something for me? Say something wise to me, or just be there and listen. And as we finish now today, I will do this exercise of breathing again, because that's coming home, gathering yourself into your center, knowing that you always have yourself, no matter what happens. It's hard to find sometimes when you go through stuff, when you're pulled out of your reality, when your carpet is pulled out from under your feet. It's hard to realize or even want to connect to yourself, because the pain gets so intense. That's when you want to wail. And then my tummy is making noise. Then you want to start to breathe and bring yourself back into yourself, knowing that even your wailing, even your grief is honoring yourself. It's a gift to yourself. It's a way of growing and moving forward. As I said, 2 years of grieving my breakup was the starting point of really moving forward, of growing, of finding myself. So I don't know if you can hear my tummy, but it's very hungry. Okay, so imagine that you can pull yourself together. Pull all the energy that you've scattered around. It doesn't matter whether it's in the past or the future, but just for this moment, practice. Try and see if you can pull yourself into your center with your deep breath, breathing in Imagine pulling yourself in together into your center, and as you breathe out, imagine anchoring this self, this energy down into your hips so you can rest in your own being. And one more breath in, pulling yourself together from whoever you've left every thought with, and bring it back into your center and down into your hips as you breathe out. One last breath, bringing in all your emotions, all your love, all your grief, all your sadness into yourself. It's yours. And as you breathe out, let it sink down into your hips so you can rest and hold yourself in all your emotions, in all your longing, and all your hope for the future. And know that you're not alone. We're here with you. We can connect anytime, because we have this beautiful age of connecting even online. We can do that. And one last appreciation of yourself to your heart. Appreciation of your ability to express whoever you are through whatever emotion comes to you. And as you lean into those emotions, you move with them. And give thanks to yourself for taking this time for yourself. And I thank you for listening to me, listening to my experience, my thoughts. They're only mine, but they matter to me and to some other people, I hope. And take care. And if you'd like to share your thoughts, your stories, anything that comes to you, please do. This video will be out there for at least 30 days, so you might catch this later, and I welcome you to do so. Take care. Have a beautiful day, and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.